Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to embark on, well, quite an intense journey through the largest armed conflict humanity has ever known, World War II.
Yeah, it's almost impossible to overstate its scale.
It really is a deadly war that pulled tens of millions of fighters from across the globe into its orbit, and it forever changed the world. Our mission in this deep dive is to map its complex origins, follow its brutal course, pinpoint those critical turning points, and explore its profound, devastating consequences. We'll be taking a stack of sources, primarily a comprehensive summary from geohistory, and basically extracting the most important nuggets of knowledge to give you a truly clear, well-informed picture. My fellow guide and expert in synthesizing complex information is here to help us connect the dots and unearth those crucial insights. So, okay, let's unpack this. How did we even get to a conflict of such, well, unprecedented scale?
That really is the critical question, isn't it?
Yeah.
If we look back to the immediate aftermath of World War I, you can see the stage was already being set for future conflict. Germany and its allies weren't just defeated, they were held solely responsible for the war. And this wasn't just, an economic burden, it was a profound psychological scar on the German psyche, a national humiliation that future leaders would skillfully exploit. We saw the dismantling of powerful empires like the Austro-Hungarian and Ottoman, and Germany itself was saddled with what was, frankly, an utterly unreasonable debt, losing colonies in vital territories.
And that humiliation, it had truly catastrophic economic consequences, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
The German economy was crippled by that excessive debt, just spiraling into hyperinflation. I mean, can you imagine needing a wheelbarrow full of banknotes just to buy a loaf of bread?
It's almost unimaginable.
That's the kind of economic collapse the mark experienced, its value plummeting by 1,000 billion between 1914 and November 1923. Just staggering. Even after radical measures tried to stabilize things, boom, the 1929 Wall Street crash hit, sparking the worst economic crisis of the 20th century. Germany wasn't spared, and unemployment absolutely exploded. You had widespread desperation setting in.
Precisely. And, out of this desperation and anger, a dangerous ideology took root. This severely weakened state in Germany then saw a significant rise of nationalism in 1933, which allowed the Nazi Party, led by Adolf Hitler, to seize power. Now, this wasn't just a political shift, it was the beginning of a radical, totalitarian transformation of the nation. What's striking here is how this new regime almost immediately sort of resets the country, defying the post-WWII conditions by restoring military service. They then pursued an aggressively expansionist foreign policy, fueled by this dream of uniting all German-speaking people under one flag.
Right, and it wasn't just Germany building that path to conflict. You had Italy, too. Despite being an allied victor in WWI, they felt cheated, didn't they, by the limited territory gained?
Yeah, frustrated.
Since 1922, Benito Mussolini's dictatorial fascist party had ruled the country. Italy, too, began its own colonial expansion, seizing Ethiopia and preparing to invade Albania. It's clear the seeds of authoritarian expansion were sprouting across Europe.
And this growing alignment between these expansionist authoritarian regimes found a chilling testing ground in the Spanish Civil War. Lasting 3 brutal years, it pitted the Republican government, supported by the USSR and international volunteers, against the nationalist camp led by Francisco Franco. And Franco received direct aid from Italy and Germany.
So it was more than just ideological support.
Oh, much more. The two Axis powers didn't just back an ally. They took this as a crucial opportunity to, as the source puts it, test their armies and to get closer diplomatically.
Yeah.
This conflict effectively served as a live-fire laboratory, refining new military doctrines and really solidifying their alliance for the global war that was coming.
But while all these seeds of conflict were rapidly germinating across Europe, a parallel and equally aggressive expansionist policy was unfolding on the other side of the world. In Asia.
That's right.
Japan continued its relentless expansion, taking advantage of the ongoing civil war in China to invade new territories. And this next detail, it truly underscores the sheer brutality and the scale of the conflict to come.
Indeed. The ruthlessness employed by the Japanese army in China was horrific.
Yeah.
They weren't just invading, they were deploying chemical and biological weapons
Unbelievable.
and committing widespread massacres of populations. This was an early, horrifying sign of the extreme methods that would come to define the war on the Pacific Front.
So back in Europe, Germany, now fully rearmed and feeling powerful, began its territorial expansion in earnest. It first annexed Austria, a move supported by local Nazis, and then invaded Western Czechoslovakia, effectively making the Slovak Republic a German satellite state. Hungary also grew diplomatically closer, drawn into Germany's orbit.
And what's really crucial to understand about this period is a significant and, frankly, cynical diplomatic maneuver.
Yeah.
After occupying part of Lithuania, Germany signed a non-aggression pact with the USSR.
Okay. The Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact.
Exactly. But this wasn't just about avoiding conflict between them. It secretly included a plan to carve up Europe, effectively dividing spheres of influence and setting the stage for invasions.
A plan to carve up Europe. Wow. With the stage now set and alliances shifting, the final irreversible spark that ignited the global conflict came when Germany launched its attack on Poland.
September 1st, 1939.
This directly provoked the United Kingdom and France to declare war, marking the beginning of World War II. What's interesting is that even though German forces were concentrated in the east, the Allied troops initially took, well, very little direct action in the west. The phony war.
That's right. France and the United Kingdom initially tried to cut the strategic iron ore route that ran through Norway. This was a vital supply line for German industry, so they were looking for indirect ways to weaken Germany.
Germany, however, reacted with just astonishing speed. They invaded Denmark and Norway.
Almost overnight.
And within days, they captured Luxembourg, the Netherlands, and Belgium. This wasn't just a military advance, it felt like a whole new form of warfare.
It was. This rapid, overwhelming advance was due to Hitler's revolutionary military strategy, Blitzkrieg, or lightning war.
Right.
It's defined as rapid, high-intensity attacks in a concentrated area designed to surprise opposition defenses and just overwhelm them before they could even react properly.
And its effectiveness was devastating. It led to British forces retreating across the Channel at Dunkirk and the German army bearing down on Paris with terrifying speed.
Yeah, the fall of France was incredibly swift.
The French army was defeated, an armistice was signed. Germany occupied the north and west of France. But they made a cunning strategic move, didn't they?
They did. They left the southern part of France and its vast colonial empire under the control of a new collaborationist government, Vichy France.
Which gave Germany indirect control of French colonies without having to commit a single soldier there. Suddenly, their reach extended far beyond European borders with minimal effort.
However, not everyone just rolled over. Parts of the French colonies in the Belgian Congo chose to stay with the Allies. And in London, which was already hosting several governments in exile, General Charles de Gaulle created Free France, continuing to fight Nazi Germany. Brazzaville was even named as its capital.
Interesting detail.
Meanwhile, the Soviet Union, acting on its secret agreements with Germany, seized the Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and a part of Romania.
So this is when the Axis powers truly formalized their alliance. Germany, Italy, and Japan combining forces.
Yep, the Tripartite Pact.
And at this point, virtually all dominions and British colonies, with the exception of Ireland, entered the war. It truly became a global conflict.
Early fighting also erupted in Africa, pitting Italian colonies against Allied forces. Back in Europe, despite massive aerial bombing of British cities, the Blitz Germany failed to break Britain's resolve or its air defenses. A direct invasion just proved impossible.
Right. The Battle of Britain was a crucial setback for Hitler. So with Britain proving too tough to crack, Hitler then pivoted dramatically. He changed his plans and decided to invade the USSR.
Operation Barbarossa.
What's truly fascinating here is how this shift, intended to be decisive, actually created unforeseen delays and complications for Germany.
It absolutely did. The delay was primarily caused by Italy's, frankly, disastrous invasion of Greece. They got bogged down, forced to retreat against Allied forces. So after Hungary, Romania, and Bulgaria joined the Axis, German armies had to divert south to invade Yugoslavia and Greece first. This delayed the massive Eastern offensive against the Soviets.
But even as armies clashed across Europe in the shadows, resistance movements began to organize.
Yes, in increasingly varied and effective forms.
People bravely organized strikes, staged demonstrations, or risked everything to protect wanted persons. Some groups spied for the Allies, conducted crucial sabotage, or printed resistance newspapers to keep hope alive.
And in Eastern Europe, you saw guerrilla forces emerge, relentlessly undermining the Axis armies. It wasn't straightforward, though. There were even internal confrontations between communist and royalist groups in places like Yugoslavia and Greece, complicating the resistance landscape.
And even within Germany itself, there was anti-Nazi resistance, including, as the source notes, some attempts to assassinate Hitler, which fail, but still demonstrate profound moral courage.
Definitely. But the main event then was indeed the invasion of the USSR. On June 22, 1941, Axis forces launched what was, on some counts, the largest military operation in history.
just staggering numbers.
This effectively brought the Soviet Union into the Allied camp and opened up a massive, brutal new front.
The bulk of the German troops, exceptionally well-equipped and motorized, rushed east, achieving initially stunning successes.
To support the Soviets and open a crucial supply line, the Allies occupied Iran. This allowed them to route aid through the Caucasus.
And the battles on the Eastern Front were just beyond devastating. The 872-day siege of Leningrad, for example. It wasn't just a siege.
No, it was an unimaginable ordeal of deprivation. It turned a once vibrant city into a frozen tomb, tragically claiming more than 1 million civilian deaths through starvation and cold.
And German troops were famously stopped right at the gates of Moscow, where they suffered immensely from a harsh and deadly winter. General winter, they called it.
And tragically, behind the front lines, the SS systematically massacred Slavic and Jewish populations with just horrific efficiency. Einsatzgruppen.
Meanwhile, in Asia, Japan continued its expansion, occupying French Indochina.
Which prompted a response.
Exactly. To counter this relentless expansionist policy, the United States imposed an embargo on oil and steel on Japan, a move designed to cripple their war machine.
The response was dramatic.
Japan's surprise attack on the United States at Pearl Harbor, December 7, 1941, it severely damaged a large part of the U.S. naval fleet.
A date which will live in infamy.
It brought the United States directly into the war on the Allied side, a monumental turning point itself. Though initially they concentrated their forces on the Pacific front while also providing crucial supplies to the USSR, Lend-Lease.
Japan, for its part, moved quickly, conquering vast new territories in the Pacific, Hong Kong, the Philippines, Malaya, Singapore, the Dutch East Indies, and the human cost of this expansion was truly horrifying. 10 million Chinese civilians were forced into labor camps, millions more in Indonesia, particularly on the island of Java.
And the treatment of prisoners.
Allied prisoners were subjected to unimaginable exhaustion building railways in Burma and Thailand, the Jeth Railway. And tragically, hundreds of thousands of women were forcibly recruited into prostitution for the Japanese army in what became known as comfort stations. Just brutal.
And back in Europe, the atrocities reached an industrial scale, the concentration and extermination camps being systematically built to massacre Jews, resistance fighters, political opponents, Roma, homosexuals, people with disabilities. The Holocaust.
The sheer horror and systematic nature of this genocide are, almost impossible to truly grasp.
Meanwhile, Hitler, now deeply fearing a second front in Europe, an Allied landing poured immense resources into constructing the Atlantic Wall.
A series of formidable military installations protecting the coast from Allied invasion.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting, and maybe a crucial analytical point for our deep dive. This raises an important question for you, the listener. What was the precise moment the tide truly turned for the Allies? When did the momentum shift irrevocably in their favor?
That's a great question, because there are several contenders, aren't there?
Definitely. But for many, a major turning point came when the Allies first landed in Morocco and Algeria in North Africa, Operation Torch.
Right. That effectively caught Italian Libya between two fronts.
And this decisive move caused Vichy France to be invaded by Germany after losing control of its colonies, a clear sign of the shifting power dynamics.
And crucially, almost concurrently, on the Eastern Front. This is massive. Axis forces attempting to cut the vital Caucasus supply route suffered a major military setback at Stalingrad.
Stalingrad, a name synonymous with brutal urban warfare.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And this was monumental because for the very first time, the Soviets take the initiative and counterattack with immense force. This wasn't just winning a battle, it was a psychological and strategic reversal. It truly broke the myth of German invincibility and marked the beginning of their long, bloody retreat westward.
So you have the torch landings in Stalingrad happening relatively close together. That momentum carried over to other fronts, didn't it?
It did. Africa became entirely controlled by allies, which was a crucial staging ground.
Which then led to the invasion and landing in Sicily.
Yep. And the new Italian government, facing collapse, requested an armistice, which then caused the Germans to invade Italy itself, creating another fierce, grinding front.
So the pressure is mounting on multiple fronts.
And this is where you really see the connection to the bigger picture. The USSR advanced rapidly westward, forcing the German army to concentrate an enormous amount of resources, men, tanks, planes on that brutal Eastern Front. This relentless pressure on the East, in turn, opened up crucial opportunities in the West for the Allies. It stretched Germany's forces incredibly thin.
And that opportunity was seized on June 6, 1944, a date etched in history, D-Day. The Allies land in Normandy.
The largest amphibious invasion in history.
Their armies quickly consolidated their beachheads, then rapidly swept through France, culminating in the triumphant liberation of Paris. A decisive push on the Western Front.
What followed was like a cascading effect across the continent. Countries in both the West and East were rapidly liberated or, seeing the writing on the wall, switched camps away from the Axis powers. Romania, Bulgaria.
And with victory finally seeming achievable, the Allied powers announced a truly significant global development: the creation of the United Nations.
Looking beyond the war already.
Exactly. Countries that had declared war on Germany and Japan would be admitted at its founding conference, which actually triggered a wave of declarations of war, but without major consequence at that late stage, more symbolic than tactical.
The final moments in Europe then arrived quite quickly. On April 30th, 1945, Hitler, facing utter defeat, committed suicide in his bunker in Berlin.
Just before the arrival of the Soviets.
Yeah, the Red Army was closing in. 8 days later, on May 8th, Germany surrendered unconditionally. VE Day. The war in Europe was over.
But the global war wasn't over yet. The final push was against Japan,
Who fought on fiercely.
The United States and USSR joined forces against them. The Soviets launched a massive military invasion via Manchuria, while the U.S. made the devastating and controversial decision to drop 2 atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Unprecedented destruction. August 6th and 9th.
On August 15th, Japan surrendered, VJ Day, marking the definitive end of World War II.
After 6 long, brutal years, the human toll was just staggering. At least 60 million dead, the source says, mostly civilians. Cities weren't just damaged, they were completely annihilated, reduced to rubble across vast swaths of the globe.
And the immediate aftermath continued to be grim. It revealed the brutal cost of war beyond the battlefield itself. Europe and the USSR subjected millions of German prisoners of war to bonded labor, many of whom would die in captivity.
Yeah, the score settling was harsh too.
The geopolitical landscape was fundamentally reshaped. Germany and Austria were carved up among the victors into occupation zones, and the old guard of European powers, Britain, France, once dominant, were left exhausted and ruined by war, their empire starting to crumble.
And into this massive power vacuum stepped 2 entirely new global superpowers. The United States and USSR emerge as the remaining global superpowers.
Their ideological differences, capitalism versus communism, magnified by their new positions, would set the stage for the next great global confrontation.
The Cold War.
Despite the hopeful role of the UN, which was established specifically to maintain peace and international security, both sides, the US and the USSR, would eventually engage in decades of indirect confrontations around the world. Proxy wars, the arms race, demonstrating that even the end of one massive conflict can lay the groundwork for the next. It's incredible to think how quickly that geopolitical landscape shifted, almost like tectonic plates moving after such a colossal impact. So after this incredible deep dive into World War II, its origins, its course, its turning points, and its profound aftermath, what stands out to you, our listener, the most?
Yeah, that's a good question to ponder. If we connect this to the bigger picture, World War II didn't just end a conflict. It fundamentally reshaped the geopolitical landscape. It gave rise to new superpowers and ushered in an era of indirect confrontation, the Cold War, that lasted for decades. So maybe a final thought for you to consider. How do you think the specific consequences of this deadliest war continue to echo in today's international relations, even now, almost a century later?